Far out in the quiet reaches of the galaxy, where the stars seemed frozen in an endless black sea, the Volari homeworld floated like a jewel of green and gold. The Volari were a gentle people, known for their art, music, and shimmering crystal, cities that reflected the light of their twin suns. Their lives had always been peaceful. War was something they read about in ancient history scrolls, not something they expected to face. But now, the harmony of their world had been shattered. It began with strange disappearances on the outskirts of their settlements, farmers who never came back from the fields, night patrols that vanished without a trace. Then came the sightings, shadowy figures moving in the forests at dusk, eyes glinting faintly like drops of molten metal. These creatures, later called the Night Claws by survivors, did not speak, did not negotiate. They only hunted. At first, the Volari thought their planetary guard could handle the threat, but the Night Claws multiplied quickly, moving faster than any known predator. They slipped past sensors, climbed sheer walls, and tore through their protective barriers as if they were made of paper. Soon, entire towns were gone, replaced by silent ruins and claw marks. The Volari High Council, desperate and frightened, called an emergency session in the Crystal Hall. Representatives from all provinces gathered under the dome of glowing crystal panels, their voices trembling as they argued. They all knew there was only one hope: send a call for help to the Galactic Alliance. The Galactic Alliance had always claimed to protect the weaker civilizations. The Volari had paid their dues, followed the laws, and trusted in that promise. So the Council's communication engineers worked through the night, crafting a distress signal that would carry across the stars. The message was simple. This is the Volari home world. We are under attack by an unknown hostile species. We request immediate assistance. Without aid, we will not survive. They sent it out on every frequency, encrypted and unencrypted, to every Alliance listening post. Then they waited. The first day passed with no reply. The second day brought only static. By the fifth day, fear began to turn into despair. Whispers spread in the streets. The Alliance is ignoring us. Some believed the Alliance didn't think saving a small, peaceful world was worth the cost. Others thought perhaps the Alliance feared the Night Claws too much. By the 10th day, hope was fading fast. Volari families packed what they could and fled toward the capital city, hoping the dense population would offer safety. Refugee ships crowded the skies, landing on platforms already filled with frightened newcomers. The once bright city began to feel suffocated, shadows creeping along its edges. Then, on the 11th day, something unexpected happened. High above, the Volari atmosphere, long-range scanners detected incoming ships, but not Alliance ships. These were not sleek silver vessels with shining banners. They were dark, almost black, with armored hulls covered in strange patchwork repairs. Heat signatures suggested older technology, but weapons readings were unsettling. Whoever they were, their ships carried enough firepower to level a city. In the Crystal Hall, the Council debated frantically. Were these the Night Claws' allies, raiders coming to finish what the Predators had started? The Volari military, already stretched thin, prepared defense batteries, just in case. Then the unknown fleet sent a transmission. It was not a formal greeting, no symbols, no elaborate introductions. Just a voice, deep, calm, and speaking in clear trade language. Volari homeworld. This is Captain Elias Ward of the Terran Expeditionary Force. We received your distress signal. The council members exchanged confused glances. Terran was a name they had only heard in distant rumors. Terrans, humans, were said to be from a world so dangerous that even their plants could kill. They were not part of the Alliance, not bound by its laws. Most civilizations avoided them. The stories painted them as reckless, unpredictable, and terrifyingly resilient. Before the council could decide how to respond, the human captain continued. "We're here to help, if you'll have us." Help? From Deathworlders? The council was unsure whether to feel relieved or alarmed. Yet, the choice was simple. No one else had come. The fleet descended through the clouds, and for the first time the Valari saw the humans. The first dropships touched down on the main landing pads of the capital. The hatches opened with a hiss, and figures stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing matte black armor that looked functional rather than ceremonial. Their faces were uncovered, their eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. They moved, with a calm readiness, as if danger was not just possible but expected. Captain Elias Ward led the group. His uniform was worn but neat, marked only by a single patch with the emblem of his force. There was no arrogance in his stance, only a steady, unshakable presence. The Valari guards at the platform were tense, hands hovering near their weapons. Elias stopped a few steps away and inclined his head slightly, not as a servant, not as a conqueror, just as someone acknowledging another's right to exist. "Your message reached us," he said simply. "You're under attack. Tell us what we're dealing with." The Valari Chancellor, a tall figure draped in flowing silver cloth, studied him for a long moment before answering. "The enemy is fast, ruthless, and fearless. We've lost half our settlements already. The Alliance, they have not come." Elias's jaw tightened. "Then we'll start where they left off." There was a moment of silence, as if the Valari were still trying to process what was happening. This was not the grand arrival of shining saviors from old legends. These were rough, battle-worn strangers from a world no one wanted to visit. And yet they had come when no one else did, and somewhere, deep in their hearts, the Valari began to wonder. Perhaps the galaxy's most feared survivors were the only ones who could save them. The Valari Chancellor led Captain Elias Ward and his human team through the shining halls of the Crystal Hall. The walls glowed with soft light, casting faint reflections on the polished floor. Valari citizens peered from balconies and side corridors, whispering to each other in hushed tones. Many had never seen a human before, only heard stories about them. The stories said they were dangerous, unpredictable, and impossible to defeat. The humans walked in calm silence, their boots making a steady rhythm on the crystal floor. Their armor was simple but strong, marked with faint scratches from past battles. They carried weapons at their sides, though none were raised. Every so often, one of them would glance toward a shadowed corner or a ceiling vent, eyes sharp and alert. Elias himself was different from what the Valari expected. He was not towering or covered in strange trophies from hunts, as the legends described. Instead, he was of average human height, with steady eyes that held the same quiet focus as a deep river. He moved without wasting motion, every step purposeful. When they reached the council chamber, the Valari leaders were already gathered. Each leader represented a province, and each wore clothing of shimmering colors that showed their status. Their faces were calm, but their eyes betrayed fear. The Chancellor introduced the humans formally. "Captain Elias Ward, leader of the Terran Expeditionary Force. These are his people, who have answered our call." One counselor, a tall Valari with golden robes, rose to speak. "Captain Ward, the Valari thank you for coming, but we must understand your reasons. The Galactic Alliance ignored us, yet you, strangers, have come. What do you want in return?" Elias's answer was short and direct. "We're not here for payment. We're here because someone asked for help." The council exchanged uneasy glances. Aliens rarely acted without gain. In the Alliance, favors were traded, debts were tallied, and aid came with contracts. This blunt, almost casual promise from the humans unsettled them. Another counselor spoke, her voice sharp. Do you know the danger you face? The night claws are not like ordinary predators. They move like shadows and cannot be reasoned with. Elias nodded once. We've faced things like them before. The words were simple, but they carried weight. The humans stood there as if danger was a normal part of life. The Chancellor gestured toward a wide, holographic table at the center of the chamber. It lit up, displaying a rotating map of the Volari homeworld. Areas in bright green marked safe zones, areas in red marked predator territory. Over half the planet was now red. Elias studied the map with his second-in-command, Lieutenant Mira, Chen, who had been silent until now. Mira's eyes scanned the terrain quickly. They're spreading from multiple points, she observed. No central nest visible on the map. Either they're hiding it well, or you've never gotten close enough to find it. The Chancellor confirmed her suspicion. We've lost too many scouts trying to locate their main hive. Elias tapped the edge of the table thoughtfully. Then we find the hive. That's step one. Without it, we'll only be pushing them back temporarily. A counselor frowned. And if you find it? Do you think your small group can defeat thousands? Elias looked up, his expression calm but unshakable. We don't need to defeat thousands. We only need to hit the right place hard enough that the rest scatter. It was a strange kind of confidence, and the Volari didn't know if it came from courage or madness. The meeting ended with a decision. The humans would stay in the capital for one night, rest, and begin reconnaissance at dawn. The Volari military would provide local guides familiar with the terrain. That evening, the humans explored the city, while the Volari capital was still, beautiful. Its streets were quieter than normal. Crystal towers glimmered under the twin moons, but many windows were dark. Refugee families huddled in plazas, guarded by tired soldiers. Some Volari children pointed at the humans from behind there. Parents, their large silver eyes wide with curiosity. Elias noticed them but didn't approach. He knew trust would take time. Still, the sight of armed strangers walking without fear gave the people something they had not felt in days, a small spark of hope. Inside the human camp, Mira reviewed gear with the rest of the team. Their equipment was not the newest or most polished, but it was reliable. Armor plates were patched with metal from other ships. Weapons were cleaned and tested with practiced hands. Every human moved with the ease of someone who had done this countless times. One of the Volari guards, assigned to watch the humans, finally spoke. You act as if this is normal for you. How can you be so calm? Elias, sitting nearby, answered without looking up from his datapad. Where we come from, danger is everywhere. You learn to live with it. You learn to survive. The guard hesitated, then asked softly, And will you help us survive? Elias finally looked at him. That's the plan. Later that night, the council gathered privately. Some still doubted the humans. Others argued that no one else had come, and these Deathworlders might be their only chance. They spoke in quiet voices about the humans' strange mix of caution and fearlessness, about how they moved like predators themselves, but predators on the right side. One counselor finally summed it up. Perhaps it is better to have dangerous allies than none at all. At dawn, the humans assembled on the main platform. The sun rose over the horizon, bathing the city in gold light. Volari guides approached cautiously, dressed in light armor and carrying long rifles. Their leader, a young scout named Sira, looked uncertain as she stood before Elias. I'll take you to the edge of the infested zone, she said. But once we're there, you're on your own. Elias nodded without judgment. Fair enough. Just get us there. As the dropships prepared to lift off, many Volari gathered to watch. Some whispered blessings, others simply stared. No. One knew if these strange humans would return from the shadows alive. But the humans boarded without hesitation, the engines roared, and the ships rose into the pale morning sky, heading straight toward the place where the night claws waited. The dropships flew low over the Valari forests, their dark hulls slicing through the misty morning air. Below, endless green stretched in every direction, broken only by patches of scorched land and shattered structures, remnants of settlements the night claws had claimed. From above, the damage looked quiet, almost peaceful, but every human on board knew it was the kind of quiet that meant danger was close. Captain Elias Ward sat at the front of the lead dropship, eyes fixed on the terrain below. Beside him, Lieutenant. Mira Chen checked her rifle's power cell. Across from them, Sira, the Valari scout, gripped her seat tightly, her silver eyes scanning the forest. "You've been near their territory before," Elias said to Sira. "What should we expect?" Sira's voice was low, almost reluctant. "They move without sound. One moment you see nothing, the next, they're already on you. They like to attack from above or behind, and once one attacks, more follow." Mira gave a short nod as if the description confirmed what she already suspected. "Classic pack hunters," she muttered. "We've dealt with worse." Sira turned to her, disbelief in her gaze. "Worse? These things wiped out whole towns." Mira didn't answer, but the faint half-smile on her lips said she meant what she'd said. The dropships landed on a wide, rocky clearing at the edge of the red-marked zone. The forest here felt different, denser, darker, and unnervingly still. Not even the wind seemed to move the leaves. The humans disembarked first, forming a loose perimeter. Their movements were quiet, purposeful, and perfectly coordinated. Valari soldiers followed, their steps less steady, weapons raised as they scanned the tree line. Elias spoke into his comm, his voice calm but carrying authority. "Perimeter secure. We move in 2 squads. Chen, take Bravo around the ridge. I'll lead Alpha straight in." The Valari guides exchanged uneasy glances. Splitting up near Nightclaw territory was not something they would have dared to suggest. As Alpha Squad moved deeper into the forest, Sira stayed close to Elias. The trees grew taller here, their branches intertwining overhead to block most of the sunlight. The air was damp, carrying the faint smell of decay. Every step crunched on fallen leaves, and every shadow seemed just a little too deep. One of the Valari soldiers whispered, "It's too quiet." Elias didn't slow down. "That means they're here." The first sign came in the form of a faint rustle above. Mira's voice crackled over the comm from the other squad. "Movement in the canopy! Multiple contacts!" Elias raised his hand, signaling his squad to halt. His eyes scanned upward, and there, barely visible, a long, narrow shape shifted, along a branch. Its skin blended perfectly with the bark, and its eyes caught the faintest glint of light. Before anyone could react, the first Nightclaw dropped. It hit the ground in a blur of motion, landing only meters from the squad. It stood on 4 limbs, its sleek body covered in natural armor. Its head was narrow, its teeth sharp, and its movements unnervingly smooth. Valari soldiers gasped and stepped back. The Nightclaw hissed, low and rumbling. "Hold!" Elias ordered. He didn't sound afraid, just focused. The creature lunged. In the same heartbeat, Elias fired. His shot hit clean, and the Nightclaw collapsed with a shriek. That was the trigger. From the shadows, more shapes emerged. On the ground, in the trees, even crawling along the sides of massive trunks. The Valari opened fire wildly, their weapons lighting up the gloom. The humans, however, fired in controlled bursts, each shot placed with precision. Sira tried to track the movements, but the Nightclaws were too fast. She saw one leap from a branch toward a Valari soldier's back, but a human soldier stepped in, grabbing the Valari and pulling him aside as another shot dropped the predator mid-air. The air filled with the snarls of the creatures and the sharp crack of weapons fire. In The chaos! Elias's voice remained calm over the comms. Bravo! Shift to their flank. Herd them toward the ridge. Mira's reply came instantly. Copy. Moving now. Bravo squad appeared moments later, firing in tight formation. The Night Claws, now caught between both squads, hesitated. They weren't used to prey that fought with such coordination. Sierra saw something in the humans she had never seen before, complete focus, but not desperation. They weren't just surviving, they were controlling the fight. Within minutes, the predators began to retreat into the deeper forest, slipping back into the shadows. The humans didn't chase. Instead, Elias gave the order to hold position and check for injuries. When the fighting stopped, the forest felt unnaturally still again. The Volari soldiers looked around in disbelief. They ran? One of them asked. Elias nodded. They're smart enough to know when they're outmatched. But they'll be back. Sierra stepped forward. You fought them like you've known them for years. How? Elias glanced at her. We've never fought these exact creatures before. But on our world, there's always something that wants to eat you. The trick is learning patterns. Once you do, you can turn the hunt around. The Volari soldiers listened quietly, still processing the idea. As the squads regrouped, Mira approached Elias. We confirmed at least 2 major trails leading north. Could be where their main nest is. Elias studied the direction. Good. We'll mark the location, pull back for now, and plan a larger push tomorrow. On the way back to the dropships, the Volari soldiers whispered among themselves. They had seen the Night Claws rip through their best-trained fighters before, yet these humans had faced them head-on and forced them to retreat. Sierra walked beside Elias, still curious. Your people have a name here, she said slowly. Deathworlders. The way it's told, it means you're dangerous. But after seeing you fight, I think it means something else. Elias gave her a small, unreadable smile. It just means we don't quit. When they returned to the capital, the Volari crowds gathered again, murmuring as the dropships landed. Some clapped softly, others simply stared. The story of the morning's battle spread quickly, how the humans had fought without fear, how they had moved like hunters themselves. And while the danger was far from over, a new thought began to take root in the minds of the Volari. If the Night Claws could be stopped, these strange, battle-worn humans might be the ones to do it. The next morning, the air over the capital felt heavier. The sun's light struggled to break through thick clouds, casting the city in a pale, muted glow. In the human camp, Captain Elias Ward stood over a portable holomap, studying the data Mira had collected from yesterday's battle. 2 glowing lines traced the trails the Night Claws had used to retreat, both heading deep into the northwestern forests. That's where we'll go, Elias said, pointing at a cluster of ridges. If their hive exists, it's near there. Lieutenant Mira Chen adjusted her rifle strap. We'll need scouts who know the terrain, and the Volari soldiers will have to keep up. Elias looked toward the Volari side of the landing platform. The Chancellor had sent 20 soldiers, led again by Sierra. They wore lighter armor this time, designed for forest movement, but their faces carried the same uncertainty. Sierra approached, her expression firm despite her unease. We're ready, but I'll remind you, no Volari has come back alive from that deep inside predator territory. Elias gave a short nod. Then today will be a first. The team moved out at dawn in 2 dropships. They landed on a stretch of uneven ground covered in thick moss, the forest around them alive with strange sounds. Unlike yesterday, the noise wasn't silence. It was the constant whisper of leaves, distant clicks, and faint thuds that came from no visible source. Stay sharp, Elias ordered as they formed a column. No sudden shooting. If you see movement, call it out before you act. The group advanced slowly. The humans led, moving with quiet confidence, scanning trees, branches, and shadows. The Volari followed, copying their movement patterns. At first, the Volari steps were uneven, but soon they began to match the humans' rhythm. Sira kept close to Elias, noting how he would pause every few steps, not because he was tired, but to listen. He wasn't just looking for the enemy, he was learning the forest. They reached the first danger point by midday. The terrain dipped into a shallow valley, the ground covered in fallen branches and thick roots. It looked harmless, until one of the humans, a tall soldier named Harper, raised a fist. Everyone froze. Harper knelt and brushed away a layer of leaves to reveal a cluster of strange, glistening pods, each the size of a fist. They pulsed faintly, almost like breathing. "Eggs," Harper said quietly. Sira's skin prickled. "We've never seen those before." Elias examined them without touching. "Too small to be main hive stock, probably scouting breed." He looked at Mira. "Mark the location for cleanup later. We don't waste ammo here." They stepped carefully around the pods, avoiding any disturbance. Even so, a faint rustle followed them as they climbed out of the valley. By late afternoon, the forest began to change. The trees grew closer together, their bark scarred with deep claw marks. Large bones lay scattered on the ground, animal and Volari alike. "This is their hunting range," Mira said softly. The group moved tighter, the Volari now fully alert. Every shadow felt alive. Then came the first ambush. From the left, a nightclaw dropped from the canopy, aiming for one of the Volari soldiers. Before it could land, a human soldier fired, dropping it mid-leap. At the same time, two more predators charged from the right. This time, the Volari reacted faster. Sira and her partner fired in sync, hitting both before they reached the group. Elias gave a sharp nod. "Good. That's how you survive." As they pushed forward, the forest floor grew damp, turning into marshland. A foul smell filled the air, thick, wet, and heavy. Harper scanned ahead with a small drone, and its feed revealed something strange, a massive opening in the side of a ridge, half hidden by twisted roots. "That's it," Elias said. "Hive entrance." The Volari soldiers exchanged nervous looks. Sira's voice was tight. "You really mean to go inside?" Elias's answer was immediate. "We're not here to admire the view." They didn't rush in blindly. Elias ordered a perimeter set up first. Humans placed motion sensors and tripwires, while Volari scouts took positions in nearby trees. They would not be taken by surprise. Then, Elias, Mira, Sira, and 4 others approached the entrance. The smell was stronger here, mixed with a low, constant clicking sound from within. The ground near the opening was slick with some kind of organic residue, and the walls bore the same pulsing texture as the pods they'd seen earlier. "We're not going in deep today," Elias said. "We get eyes inside, map the first chamber, and get out. When we come back, we'll be ready to burn it down." Inside, the air was warmer, the light dim. The first chamber was massive, the walls lined with strange web-like structures. Some were empty, but others held large, egg-shaped masses. Small nightclaws moved along the walls, tending to the eggs. They hissed faintly at the intruders, but didn't attack immediately. Mira activated a scanner, mapping the chamber and sending the data back to their dropships. "Multiple tunnels leading deeper," she reported. "Hard to track them all without more time." A sudden, sharp screech echoed through the hive. The smaller creatures scattered, and from one of the larger tunnels, a much bigger nightclaw emerged. Its body was twice the size of the others, its armor darker, its movements slower but more deliberate. "Time to go," Elias said calmly. They backed out slowly, weapons raised. The large nightclaw followed a few steps, but did not leave the hive. It simply stood there, watching them retreat, its eyes glinting in the dim light. Once outside, the humans dismantled their perimeter quickly. Elias spoke to the group. "We have their nest. We have a way in. Tomorrow, we hit them before they spread further." The Valari soldiers looked both relieved and unsettled. They had gone deeper than any Valari patrol had ever dared, and come back alive. More than that, they had faced the enemy inside its own territory and escaped without panic. Sira looked at Elias as they boarded the dropship. "You didn't just fight them. You studied them, like you were teaching us." Elias's reply was simple. "Because one day, you'll have to do this without us." Back in the capital, the data from the hive was displayed on the council's main map. For the first time, the enemy's location was clear. The chancellor turned to Elias. "You have given us a chance. Tell us what you need." Elias looked at the glowing map, then at the chancellor. "Enough supplies for a full strike, and every fighter who's willing to stand in the dark without running." The chancellor nodded slowly. "You will have them." As the meeting ended, word spread through the city. The humans had found the hive. The final fight was coming. And this time, the Valari would not be hiding behind walls. They would be standing beside the Deathworlders. The Valari capital had never been this tense. The streets were quieter than usual, but the air was filled with movement. Soldiers loading supplies, engineers checking weapons, and scouts preparing gear. The hive location had been shared across the defense network, and every able fighter was being called to action. In the human camp, Captain Elias Ward and Lieutenant Mira Chen stood over a detailed holomap of the hive entrance. The image glowed faintly, showing tunnels and chambers recorded by their scanners. Elias traced a path with his finger. "This is our main route," he said. "We enter here, push into the first chamber, and plant charges along these walls. Once they're set, we pull out fast. The blast will collapse the upper tunnels and bury the main egg clusters." Mira nodded. "That'll cripple them. But the big one we saw yesterday," Elias cut in, "will come for us. We'll have to hold long enough to finish the job." Sira arrived with a group of Valari soldiers. They wore a mix of their own, light armor and pieces of human protective gear, an odd combination, but one that offered better defense. Sira herself carried a compact human-made rifle, its surface still clean and new. "All units are ready," she reported. "Some of our people are afraid, but no one is running." Elias gave her a short nod of approval. "Good. Fear keeps you careful. Just don't let it freeze you." The strike force moved out before dawn. 2 dropships carried the human and Valari squads to the ridge overlooking the hive. Mist clung to the trees, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. Elias stood at the open hatch as the dropship descended. He could see the dark, root-covered entrance below. Even from the air, it looked like the open mouth of some ancient beast. The ships landed in silence. Humans moved quickly, securing the perimeter. Valari soldiers followed, their movements sharper than before. They had learned from the previous missions. Elias gathered everyone at the entrance. "Remember," he said, his voice calm but firm, "we go in together, we leave together. Watch your partner, call out movement, and never fight alone." Inside the hive, the air was thick and warm. The dim light from the humans' helmets revealed the same pulsing web-like walls as before, but now they were crawling with small night claws. The creatures hissed and skittered away at the sight of the intruders, disappearing into side tunnels. The team moved quickly. Mira led the charge team, planting explosives along the first chamber's walls. Harper and 2 others worked on the left flank, setting charges near egg clusters. The Valari soldiers covered them, firing at any predator that ventured too close. The sound of distant screeches echoed through the tunnels. The noise was growing louder. "They know we're here," Mira warned over the comm. "Then we finish faster," Elias replied. The first real wave hit without warning. 6 night. Claws poured in from an upper tunnel. their claws scraping the walls as they dropped down. Humans and Valari fired together, the sharp cracks of human rifles mixing with the heavier hum of Valari energy weapons. A Valari soldier stumbled as a predator leapt at him, but Sira's shot took it down before it could land. The soldier glanced at her, stunned. She gave him a quick nod before turning back to the fight. In the middle of the chaos, Elias checked the charge timer. 2 more minutes, he called out. The ground trembled. From the largest tunnel, the massive Nightclaw appeared. Its dark armor plates reflected the dim light, and its eyes locked on Elias instantly. It let out a deep, rumbling roar and charged. Hold! It off! Elias ordered. 3 humans and 2 Valari stepped forward, firing at its legs and head. The creature barreled through the fire, swiping with claws that gouged deep into the walls. It moved slower than the smaller ones, but every strike was powerful enough to crush a person. Elias waited until it lunged, then sidestepped and fired at its exposed flank. Mira's rifle joined his, and together they drove it back a few steps. Charges. Are set, Mira called. Elias activated the remote timer. Everyone fall back! The team began to retreat toward the entrance, covering each other as more predators flooded into the chamber. The big one followed, but now the humans' fire was focused on keeping it at bay rather than killing it. They just needed to reach the surface. As they neared the entrance, Elias triggered a secondary charge hidden in the tunnel wall. The explosion shook the hive, throwing dust and debris into the air. The blast slowed the predators, giving the strike force the final seconds. They needed to get outside. Go, go, go! Mira shouted as they cleared the entrance. The entire group sprinted toward the perimeter zone, where the dropship's side turrets opened fire to keep predators from following. Elias looked at the timer. 3 seconds left. Cover your ears, he yelled. The main charges detonated. The ground heaved, and a roar of collapsing rock and dirt thundered through the forest. A massive plume of dust and debris shot out of the hive entrance, and the screeches from inside were abruptly cut off. When the dust settled, the entrance was gone, buried under tons of stone and shattered roots. Silence hung over the ridge. The Valari soldiers stared at the collapsed hive, still breathing hard. Sira stepped forward, her voice quiet but steady. It's over. Elias shook his head. Not over, but they won't recover from this easily. You've bought yourselves time, maybe years. The Chancellor's voice came over the comm from the capital. We are receiving reports of predator withdrawal across the region. You've done what no Valari believed possible. Elias didn't answer immediately. He looked at the Valari soldiers, tired, dirty, but standing tall. We did it together? He said finally. Back at the capital, the returning dropships were met by cheering crowds. Valari citizens lined the platforms, their silver eyes bright with relief. For the first time in weeks, hope filled the city. Sira walked beside Elias as they disembarked. Your people fight like the stories say, she admitted. But they also protect. That's something the stories never told. Elias gave her a faint smile. Stories usually leave out the best parts. That night, under the twin moons, the Valari celebrated, not with grand parades or loud music, but with a quiet, shared understanding. The Deathworlders had stood in the dark and faced the nightmare head-on. And because of that, the Valari could look toward tomorrow without fear. The Valari capital was different now. The fear that had once weighed over every street seemed lighter, replaced by a cautious hope. The markets reopened, laughter returned in small bursts, and children began to play in the plazas again. But in the human camp, the work had not stopped. Captain Elias Ward stood with Lieutenant Mira Chen, reviewing final supply reports. The humans had come with enough equipment to fight a long campaign, but with the hive destroyed, they no longer needed to stay. We can be ready to move out. In 2 days, Mira said, closing her datapad. Elias nodded. Good. The Valari need to start standing on their own. If we stay too long, they'll depend on us too much. Mira glanced toward the city. Think they'll manage? Elias's answer was steady. They've seen how. That's the first step. Later that morning, the Valari Chancellor invited Elias and his senior team to the Crystal Hall, the Grand. Chamber, once filled with tense debates and fearful arguments, now felt calmer. Sunlight streamed through the crystal panels, painting soft patterns on the floor. You have given us something beyond survival, the Chancellor said as the meeting began. You have given us time to prepare and the courage to fight again. Elias inclined his head. We only answered a call. The fight was always yours. A counselor stepped forward, holding a small crystal medallion. This is our highest symbol of gratitude. It is rarely given to outsiders. We wish for you to take it. Elias accepted it with a polite nod, but his voice remained practical. If you want to thank us, train your soldiers. Strengthen your borders. The predators will return one day. You can't wait for someone else to save you. The counselors exchanged glances, but there was no offense in their eyes, only understanding. In the days that followed, humans worked with Valari troops to pass on every survival technique they could. They trained in tracking signs of predators, setting traps, and fighting in close quarters. Valari soldiers practiced alongside the humans until their movements became sharper, faster, more confident. Sira took to the training quickly. Under Elias's guidance, she learned to lead smaller teams into dangerous areas without panic. On the final day, she approached Elias quietly. I used to think Deathworlders were only dangerous, she admitted. But now I see you are dangerous, for a reason. You fight to protect. Elias gave a faint smile. Danger is just a tool. What matters is how you use it. The humans' departure day came sooner than the Valari expected. The dropships were loaded, the last checks completed. Valari citizens gathered at the platforms, their silver eyes watching silently. Sira approached the group of humans one last time. When you first arrived, we were afraid of you. Now, she hesitated, searching for the right words. Now I think of you as the ones who stepped into the dark when no one else would. Elias met her gaze. That's all we try to be. As the dropships lifted into the pale morning sky, the city below seemed almost to hold its breath. The black, battle-worn vessels rose higher until they were only shadows against the clouds, then vanished into the endless stars. The Valari stood in silence for a long moment. Then the Chancellor spoke, his voice carrying across the platform. The galaxy calls them Deathworlders. We will remember them as the ones who came when all others turned away. Far above, in the quiet of space, the human fleet regrouped. On the bridge of his ship, Elias looked at the empty stretch of stars ahead. Mira stepped up beside him. They'll be all right, she said. Elias didn't look away from the view. They'll be more than all right. They've learned what it takes to survive. That's worth more than any rescue. The ship's engines flared, carrying them deeper into the black. The mission was over, but somewhere out there another call for help would come. And when it did, the Deathworlders would be ready to answer, stepping out of the dark once again.